What happens to the places where humans used to live or work once all the humans have gone away? Well, in most cases, they get knocked down and something else gets built on top of them. That doesn't always happen though. Sometimes places simply get abandoned and then, over time, become forgotten. There's something strangely beautiful about abandoned places, and you're about to see that in this video. Pumapunku in Bolivia is already one of the most mysterious abandoned places in the world. We've spoken about it before on this channel, and if you're familiar with archaeology and ancient history, you may already know about it. By far, the most mysterious thing about this ancient temple complex near Tiwanaku, though, is the way all of its enormous megalithic stone blocks fit into place so perfectly without any mortar. They're fit so tightly that you can't even pass a razor blade between where the stones meet. If we didn't know any better, we'd say that they'd been created by machine. That would certainly explain why and how there are so many precise drill holes in the stones. However, Pumapunku was created more than 1,000 years ago. We don't know which civilization built the site, but we do know that they didn't have a writing system. How is it possible that they did all this without any advanced technology? People sophisticated enough to achieve this should have become the dominant culture in the region, but instead it seems they disappeared completely. It's a total mystery and not one we expect to be solved anytime soon. The largest and most remarkable scale model in the world is that of the Mississippi River Basin model in Jackson, Mississippi, USA. It's such an accomplished model that it would be natural to assume it was created by architects and academics, but it wasn't. It was created by prisoners of war. The model represents just over 40% of the landmass of the United States of America, including 15,000 miles of streams. The whole model is contained within just 8 miles of parkland, and today, the site has been almost totally reclaimed by nature. The model was built because of the devastation that was caused every time the Mississippi River flooded. To prevent the floods, experts needed information and a way of testing theories. The best way to do that was to create a physical model. Building such a model was a massive undertaking, so the Army Corps made the morally dubious decision to use German and Italian prisoners of war to carry out the work in 1943. The prisoners didn't finish the project, though, because it wasn't completed until 1966. Information gleaned from testing the model helped to avert a catastrophic flood in 1952, but by the 1980s, computer modeling was beginning to take over. The site was officially abandoned in the 1990s. We're staying in the USA for a closer look at the ghost town of Two Guns in Winslow, Arizona. You can find it by driving down Route 66. The town was founded as a trading post in the early 19th century. By the 1920s, it was a vibrant town with a road that had become the default route across Diablo Canyon. Everything changed when an outspoken and, quite frankly, completely insane businessman called Harry Two Guns Miller bought the town and turned it into a tourist destination. He renamed the town Two Guns in his own honor and renamed himself Chief Crazy Thunder, while claiming to be a full-blooded Apache. He also started digging up the bones of Native Americans and arranging them in caves as tourist displays. Many people say that Miller brought a curse upon himself in the process. He was later mauled by a mountain lion, bitten by a snake, and lost his home in a fire. News of the curse put tourists off visiting Two Guns, and although it changed ownership a few times in the years that followed, it never saw many customers from the outside world, and was eventually destroyed by another huge fire in 1971. It's been empty ever since. Our next abandoned location is an enormous concrete construction in Charleroi, Belgium. Some people think it looks like an alien cathedral or a city built for a science fiction movie, but it's actually a disused power plant. During its working life, it went by the catchy name of Power Plant IM. and it was the largest power facility in the whole country when it opened in 1921. It grew even more powerful over the decades that followed, powering almost all of Charleroi by the late 1970s, with a cooling capacity of nearly 500,000 gallons of water per minute. During that same decade, the site was expanded to allow for the production of gas power too. Unfortunately, it was producing almost as much pollution as it was power. 10% of all the carbon dioxide emissions in Belgium came from this plant, and by 2006, Greenpeace was permanently at the site campaigning for its closure. It shut down the following year and has been empty ever since. It's currently scheduled for demolition, but that would probably be a complicated operation, and it hasn't been started yet. The Hellfire Club in Dublin, Ireland is haunted, and so is the ground it's built on. We know that might be difficult to believe, but the locals are convinced that the hauntings are a fact, and they won't be told differently. The club was built in 1725, but lasted less than 100 years before being gutted by fire. The club's owners opted not to have it rebuilt, citing strange, unexplained things they'd seen and heard in and around the building as the reasons why. An archaeological dig into a mound beneath the club in 2016 might have found the cause of their unease. It was once thought to be a natural mound, but it's actually a burial mound and passage tomb. Worse still, some of the stones from the passage tomb appear to have been used by the Hellfire Club's builders to create the foundations of the structure. To make things even weirder, the tombs were empty, save for a skeleton clutching a figurine of the devil in its bony hand. The tale gets weirder still, because the skeleton was only 250 years old. They died while the Hellfire Club was still open, and their remains were placed inside the passage tombs. How creepy is that? When the communist era ended in Albania, monuments to the former communist government weren't looked upon fondly. Because of that, the Pyramid of Tirana is now a broken, battered shell of the glorious building that it once was. It looks ancient, but it wasn't built and opened until 1988. That was close to the end of communism in the country. 3 years earlier, communist leader Enver Hoxha had passed away, and the pyramid was supposed to be a monument to his legacy of success. The Albanian people weren't convinced they wanted the monument or that his supposed success was worth celebrating. The system of government changed in 1992, and all installations honoring Hoxha's name within the pyramid were removed immediately. At first, the building was repurposed as a convention center, and then became a military staging area. Following on from there, it became the headquarters of a television channel. Unfortunately, none of these new owners had much money to pay for the upkeep of the pyramid, and so it fell to rack and ruin. It was also a regular target for vandals and looters because of its former political associations. These days, it's earmarked for demolition, although a small community group has been campaigning to keep it protected as an important part of Albanian history. There are few things worse than being in prison, but we might be able to think of one. How about being in prison underneath the water? Rumu Prison in Estonia is an underwater prison, but thankfully it wasn't beneath the waves when prisoners lived within its walls. That would have been both impractical and highly illegal. The prison was built in this location by the Soviet Union during the 1940s because it was conveniently close to a limestone quarry. The prisoners were used as free labor and spent their days toiling in the quarry to extract whatever they could. After 1991, though, when Estonia became an independent nation, it was decided that what went on at Rumu amounted to cruel and unusual punishment, and the prison was closed. With nobody left to maintain it, groundwater rapidly flooded the site and partially submerged it. It's now a popular tourist spot for divers, who have reported that some of the mining equipment that was used here is still in place below the waterline. You can even swim through some of the old cells if the mood takes you. The Sanatorio de Cesuras in Coruna, Spain, was built in response to the tuberculosis crisis of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The disease was massively infectious and impossible to treat, so the kindest and safest thing to do with people who had it was to send them to facilities like this one. There's a reason why the Sanatorio de Cesuras looks like such a haunted old wreck today, though. The building was never finished. Work on the sanatorium began in 1925 under the guidance of the renowned architect Rafael González Villar, but a lack of strategic and financial aid from the government meant that funds ran out before he could see the project through to completion. Work briefly resumed in 1933 but stopped again in 1936, and the building has been abandoned ever since. Both the sanatorium and the land it's built on belong to the local Osa Cesuras Council, which has never shown any interest in either demolishing or developing it. The site is popular with urban explorers, but is so badly dilapidated that it's thought to be in danger of collapse. Salton City was once an oasis in the deserts of California, and a favorite hangout spot of Hollywood celebrities. Now it's like something from a post-apocalyptic movie. Creating Salton City was a hugely expensive project for the California Development Company. It involved building a new irrigation canal to bring water to the desert from the Colorado River, flooding a dry basin that became known as the Salton Sea. At first, the move seemed to pay off. Salton City attracted over 1.5 million well-heeled tourists every year and was nicknamed Salton Riviera. Eventually, though, the developers got too greedy. They added a further 25,000 residential lots, making the resort feel far less private and exclusive. Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack stopped coming, the Beach Boys stopped doing impromptu concerts on the seashore, and Salton Riviera generally lost its appeal. To make matters worse, the fish in the sea started dying for unknown reasons, which put off the few tourists that the city had left. By the time scientists realized the fish were being killed by agricultural runoff from the farms that had been built in the city, it was too late. Birds had been poisoned by eating the toxic fish, so now the birds were dying and falling out of the sky. Everybody left, and they never came back. America is full of ghost towns. In fact, here's another one from Arizona. It's the curiously named town of Santa Claus in Arizona's Golden Valley. Situated in the blazing hot Mojave Desert, Santa Claus was founded by Nina Talbot in 1937 as yet another ill-advised attempt to create a tourist trap. Nina and her husband erected several Christmas-themed buildings, proclaimed the town to be the true home of Santa, and promised that children would be able to visit jolly old St. Nick on any day of the year. Nina hoped that it would become such a joyous town that people would buy real estate and move there. She made money by running a service replying to Christmas letters from children all over America, sending responses in envelopes postmarked with the town's name. But the real estate plan never took off. She sold up and moved away in 1949. Somehow, a few of the gift shops and restaurants limped on until 1995, but even they were gone by the turn of the century. And then the last traces of the town of Santa Claus were erased by a fire in 2021. Our next abandoned place is also a ghost town, albeit one with a history that stretches back much further than the mid-20th century. It's Craco in Matura, Italy, a medieval town high up on a stunning hillside. This was a busy, thriving town for more than 1,400 years and survived plagues, tribes of barbarians, and 2 world wars. But an enormous landslide finally put an end to human settlement here in 1991. While the people may have gone, the beautiful buildings they created over the centuries they lived here still remain. The town's castle, built in the year 1300, is especially noteworthy and contains a statue of the Virgin Mary that's said to have been found in a nearby lake in mysterious circumstances. The statue is the town's one remaining link to the outside world. Each year, a religious festival is held with the statue as its centerpiece, and thousands of people from the surrounding area come to fill Craco with life once more. It's no longer possible to stay here overnight, but the views of the surrounding area from inside the town make any walk or hike worthwhile. Our next abandoned location is our last, so we're going out with a bang, and we mean that literally. We're back in Arizona for a third time to look at Meteor City in Coconino County, so named because it's close to Barringer Meteor Crater. Although it's called a city, there were never truly enough people here to justify the name. It was more like a trading post, known for its bizarre dome. The dome is still standing and is topped by a yellow mohawk. Why the dome has a mohawk is unknown. Meteor City started as little more than a Texaco gas station in 1938. By 1941, it had expanded to offer groceries and souvenirs, including postcards, petrified wood, Baja shirts, and supposedly Navajo rugs. The Native American theme continued when the world's largest dream catcher was erected on it a few years later, after which a 100-foot-long map of Route 66 was painted outside the dome. Meteor City's fame faded over the years, and by 2012 it had become abandoned after the last owners failed to find anybody willing to meet the $150,000 asking price. This story could yet have a happy ending though. New owners were finally found in 2020, and there's a plan in place to restore this unlikely tourist hotspot to its former glory. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!